Welcome to your Kin Feedback and Fun Focus video. Okay, Kin, let's begin. Let's remember that Kin are protectors of a certain kind of energy, so be sure to pause the video, reflect on the session before, and state the intention that you have in coming out of the workshop. What message and what kind of energy are you bringing to a space, taking responsibility for yourself and for those that you are interacting with in the field. Also, as you move through the highlights that I'm about to read off based on my notes, it is important that you check the checklist of the criteria that you have now made for yourself coming out of the workshop. Those of you who have gone forward and done your redefining your contract with yourself and with the work that you do in the field. So take a moment, pause the video, and declare it. What is the intention that you're bringing to this space? The space being yourself and your work. Okay, so the general focus for these videos are things we want to acknowledge coming out of the session, things we want to appreciate, and ways we can amplify that. I usually do it where I separate them, but because of the nature of the workshop, I decided to just leave it up to you. So I'm just going to read off my notes and you can itemize them upon reflection. What is it you want to acknowledge about the way you do your work, about the way you integrate within your team as it functions, and the way you'd like to integrate with other linkages that come through the door, other opportunities for networking, etc. What about you? What do you feel your strengths are as it relates to being open and honest with yourself about the effects that the integration is having on you, and how does it change the way you work? Ultimately, how does it improve the way you work? The effects that the field is having on you and the effect you intend to have on the field. Okay, so let's talk about the timeline of emotional unfolding, that 15-minute marker where we stop and check, okay, how do we feel now? How do we feel now? I wanted to thank you for being so receptive to that and for doing it without me even reminding you. As soon as it clicked, everyone just, took responsibility for themselves and threw themselves into it. And I really appreciated watching you all do that. That was powerful. The trust was powerful. I wanted to say that, make the point that I made it private because it's so important for you to observe your own feelings unfolding and to check if you may have diluted your feelings, just in case you thought that you may have had to share it at the end of the workshop. Remember, in the work that you're doing, choice is a big factor. So it's important that when you do team building sessions that you do give yourself choice and you do stand up in your power to choose, because that is what has been taken from a lot of the clientele that you'll be working with. Okay, moving on, we have interpretation and clarification of concepts and words based on context and life experience. So, for example, when my team called me out on the shaving legs example as a self-care example, that was us workshopping that team synergy in real time, the ability to be open to correction, the ability to feel the comfort to correct each other and speak up for the feelings that may have gone without consideration. Even if you know that someone, or you feel that someone is well intended, the effect is important. And so then we got it with the shaving legs example and with the cheesecake example. and that was also very important. So remember that we all interpret things differently, and it's not just good enough to just say that and sound eloquent. It is important to clarify, make sure that both people understand. Ask questions like, what do you understand from what I said? Have somebody explain it back to you, of course, in context to the kind of relationship dynamic between you and the mentor, mentee, clientele. But yeah, it's very important that you take responsibility for the communication and ensure that people understand that it's a safe space where they can feel free to challenge you and disagree with you and say what is working for them and what's not working for them, so that you can give referrals. Because the goal is always to have the client feeling comfortable and that their needs are getting met. So if you're not effective for a period of time, they should be able to feel comfortable to move on to someone else or to another agency altogether. So integrating that into a team building aspect now, it is that within the team, if you develop and invest that synergy of good communication within, and that just takes practicing having vulnerable conversations. Like I said, I'm going to put the crucial conversations video link in the bottom of this video. But yeah, just committing to your comfort and the synergy of your group, of your working dynamic, living true to your work ethic and developing your work ethic as you grow. It's important to be able to clarify things and question things within the team, because if not, then the clientele is able to play the team against each other when manipulation comes into play, and that can be very dangerous, because when we're dealing with crisis situations, you need to ensure that you can trust the different members of your team. So that's how it directly impacts when people make snide jokes or in the culture that we are living in. You find often we can be harsh and we make jokes and things are left up to interpretation and people feel slighted. It is important to be able to pull somebody aside when the group is done and just clarify, like, I was joking, or did that hurt you, or something like that, in relative to, again, the kind of relationship that you would have with that person. But ultimately, both sides want to take responsibility for the team's synergy. So we also spoke about people becoming, self-validation and being your own best friend, and being on your own and in your own power, and the work's ability to expose you to vulnerable spaces, but also an immense amount of power, because you have people's information and intelligence and circumstances at your disposal. You can make or break someone, and we're building platforms where people can feel comfortable to build themselves and express themselves. And so if you're not building that within yourself, it's not going to come out genuine. So that's a lifetime journey, and you have to always remember that, especially when you're facing the effect that it has on you, to remember that you're your first and you're your most constant presence in your life. And the more you find a joyful rhythm, a fun and functional, like we spoke about, rhythm with that, it helps it to come out so much more naturally. Okay, and then on the note of confidentiality, we spoke about the reason why I didn't use names. I didn't have us introduce each other with names, but to just keep it in the experiential exercise, to make it about the connection with the person and not with their name specifically, because a lot of the times that's what's going to happen. You're going to create the connection with, for example, with the kind of virtual anonymous support that is being given specific to the work that we're integrating on here. people can use aliases, etc. So you're connecting to people who are sharing their issues and you're sharing support, and that's what is so important in our small contextual geographical space, that you maintain the confidentiality of not passing people in the street and calling them by name unless they initiate that conversation with you, because in a worst case scenario, you can have someone pass you on the street and you say hi to them by name, and someone who is directly connected to abusive situation that they're going through will ask them, oh, how do you know that person? And if you're popular enough that they know your work remotely, that can be very dangerous for them. So it is a strong guideline that we use, that we specifically don't use names. We try not to know names, we try to forget names, and just keep genuine connections with individuals, so that when we pass each other in the supermarket, we wait for that person's permission. Of course, in this situation, it's different, but I was workshopping for you to understand the intensity of what we go through, so you would appreciate us as well in real time, because it wouldn't have been effective if I just said it. I wanted you to experience it, and so I just wanted to say that's why I didn't wanted to confirm that, because I had mentioned it, but I think I got a little sidetracked. So that's the reason why for us we don't mention names, and I chose not to introduce people by name, but rather by passion. Okay, so I don't remember exactly what I wrote down something here. I don't remember the fullness of it, but I remember it was during the cheesecake example. And then the person who was bringing up the cheesecake example said, oh, sorry, no, this is what I meant. And sort of, made it seem like it wasn't that I had really hurt their feelings. And so in context, that's totally fine, but it made me write the issue of sorry and how we use it in our work as well on our side of the team, just so you can have that appreciation as we're integrating. So for us, a lot of the clientele that we're facing, we want to encourage them out of using sorry, because there's a lot of victim blaming, and you find that people are always over honoring people who support them and under honoring to zero honoring themselves. So that's why I did the self-belief inventory on a scale of 1 to 3 when we did that exercise in the end when it came to facing your dreams, because again, however it is you're feeling is what is happening in transference. As we're dealing with people remember how you make them feel. You hear that all the time, and it's cliche for a reason. It's a tried and true statement. So it is so important that we encourage people to not feel sorry for how they feel, and within the team, when you have recommendations to how the team can function better, that you do not feel sorry for what you have to say, but you find a self-honoring and team-honoring way of speaking about it. Whether it be that you soundboard with somebody, or you role play with somebody, or you write it out first, or you write it in an email, have somebody edit it. But it's very important that we feel unapologetic and live and thrive unapologetic. And these things that I'm suggesting, they take time, but we are with that time, the team is with that time, and our work is with that time. So use it as best as possible. Remember to be gentle and kind with yourself. This is a lifetime journey, whether you stay in this specific area within the field or not. You are a human, you are in service, and the opportunities will always come up for it, even if you move on. Okay, so I wrote on the list of everyone's passion, and I'm thinking that we should probably have a linkage page of some sort, or maybe if it's just in a group, if there's a group format platform that we want to use, but I thought that it'd be good to maintain the connection by sending each other resources that feed the passions that we shared, so we can keep in touch that way. So if somebody finds something about biochemistry and travel and what else, Maldives, all the other things that we mentioned in the space, we can just freely share it. So just a thought: if it catches, somebody start up the group, and let's keep in touch and build the relationship that way. And lastly would be asking you directly, have you rewritten that contract with yourself yet? Even up till now that you're watching the video, have you written the contract with yourself yet? Because it's Monday. And if not, do write down your criteria. What are you giving to this work in exchange for what? What does an all expenses paid life look like to you? What are all your needs being met? What's that looking like? What does fulfillment look like? So we dreamed of a 3-month goal. I'd like to do another follow-up session perhaps in 6 months to see where we are, to give inventory to how the group has merged. And so give yourself a 6-month goal relative to your redefining your role, that in 6 months when I ask you to redefine your role, you can say, no, I can solidify this role, like this, I found my groove, I found myself for now in the work, or another change is needed. That 6 months I was able to do it, and I've grown so much and I'm ready to move on to a stronger role, less intense role, a different space altogether. Remember to change your mind with integrity, and when you come into a space, come into it well. While you're in there, be well. And if it is time for you to move on and leave well. All right, I think that's everything. So I'll put the links for the TED Talk that we had listened to for those who missed it in the beginning. I'll put the crucial conversations. And I think there was one more thing. I have to look at my notes again and see. If not, I will see you at our next virtual space session. All right. It was a wonderful, wonderful weekend meeting everyone, and we will see you soon.